Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
Sure. My name is Bonnie Habyan. I am actually new to South Carolina. I just moved here about a year ago. So it's great to meet some fellow South Carolinians. Is that what they call South Carolinians? I don't even know what they call it. I'm from New York and was born and raised in Maryland, lived in New York for about 25 years, and now find myself here in the great state of South Carolina. I recently published a book, which I'll be sharing a little information about. And I'm currently in marketing. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Excalibur Capital. I'm going to talk about some interesting things here that I think we as women need to hear. And I think hopefully it'll give you something to think about after you kind of close up here. And you know what? I've talked before about women in finance, and I know here we have leaders all over the place, or not just specifically in finance, but, you know, I being a woman in finance, we're starting to see a little bit that women in financial roles are starting to grow, and that's terrific news. We want to continue to see that movement. But overall, you know, we're looking at the world in general. Women are moving in all sorts of careers, and they're doing wonderful things, but they lag in one or two areas, which I'm going to touch on. So each of us singly, we are strong and we are smart. But if you hit the next slide, I'd like to explain what I'm seeing. Individually, we are a drop. As a group, we're an ocean. And as a pack, we are definitely unstoppable. And that's what I'm going to talk about for the next few moments. Why the power of the pack has never been more important than right now in 2022. And why we as women have to work together to try and come together a little bit more to move that needle. Now, I'm not here to talk about the importance of, you know, picketing or going somewhere and walking down streets and saying we need change. That's all well and good. I'm trying to say something a little bit different. I'm trying to say we need to start putting another tool in the toolbox to make change in a very meaningful way. Hit the next slide. How many of us here invest in certain things, right? We invest in our kids, we invest in our 401k, we invest in our house, we invest in so many things, maybe a little Botox filler. You don't have to raise your hand on that one, right? We all invest in things. I'm saying we need to start to invest in each other. And until we do, we're missing out on the secret sauce of something I call strategic, intentional alignment. You can make a difference in the lives of people before you, after you, and all of those are on this call today by doing a few simple things. So I want to give you an example. So this kind of brings it full circle as to what I'm talking about. I'm going to share a story with you. And it's a story about my friend named Iris. Iris and I met about 8 years ago, and she was actually the cleaning person in my house in Long Island. She was cleaning my house for about a year, and I knew her name, but really didn't know much about her. And one day I was home, like all of you, right? We work like crazy, and then I'm home on a holiday, and it was a Columbus Day, and Iris came, and I had been studying Spanish for a long time. Now, Iris really didn't speak much English, and I was a little nervous. I wanted to say, okay, let me give this a shot and see if I can communicate. So I started, and her eyes got really wide, thinking, what is this blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman doing speaking Spanish? And, you know, I said to her something simple, like, ¿De dónde eres? Where are you from? And she immediately, like, we had this like new bond, right? She's like, okay, this woman's making an effort. And we started to chat. So we chatted a little bit. She told me where she was from. She had 2 children. She was living in Queens with a friend. And we went on a little bit further. I asked her then to, you know, pass me the pen. I was writing, you know, some groceries down, chit-chat a little bit more. The day went on. I came back later and I'm like, hey, how are things going? She's like, good. And she's like, oh, I got to go home tonight and cook dinner. I'm like, yeah, you know, and she stopped and she looked down a little bit and she pulled up her sleeves and pulled down her blouse. And she said, mi esposo trató de matarme, which means my husband tried to kill me. And of course, immediately I went from this woman who I barely know is now a fighter, someone who I see as being someone that is out there fighting for her kids, trying to do whatever she can to make the best life she can. And I immediately went from, okay, now she's getting everything that I have from my daughter, anything I can do to help and support her. She and I sort of aligned. So, I didn't see her for a few months. She came back and it was Martin Luther King Day. We connected again, got to chatting, and she was coming down the steps. I was walking up and I grabbed her. I said, what do you want to do with your life? You're a really smart lady. You work really hard. And she said, I'd like to either start my own cleaning business or maybe work as a manager in some sort of a company. And I said, well, why aren't you? She said, I have a degree from El Salvador, but they don't recognize it here. It's really, really hard for me to try to go through that process. And I said, well, what's the most difficult part? And she said, my English skills aren't great. I said, okay, well, have you thought about going back to school for that? She goes, well, yeah, I have, but I have 2 little girls and it's expensive. And I said, yeah, I get it. So she went on her way and I went on mine, and I started thinking, gosh, it seems a shame that something like that is standing in the way of helping her get to that next step. So she was packing up her things, and she would always pack up her items and come down through the laundry room and out through the garage. And I was in there folding towels. You know how we always multitask as working moms. And she comes down and I stopped her. I said, I want to help you. And she looked at me and I said, I want to pay for your English classes. Sign up at Suffolk and let's see if we can get your English better. I think you have incredible potential. She started to cry. She was crying because she was happy. But man, she signed up, and the next couple of months, I'd get screenshots of 92, 94. She was really proud. And I was really proud of her. So when I packed up to move last year, she's like, I want to come over and say goodbye. I said, great. And she brought her girls. And at this point, after the 8-year period, 7-8-year period, she had 3 girls. And they were all bright and smart. And, she handed me this card, and I kind of put it aside because I'm in the middle of packing and my mind's in a million places. And I wanted to spend a little time with her girls, who were just, their eyes were bright and their souls were beautiful. And they were just beaming and so excited. And, I gave her then my mantra. I said, do not ever depend on a man financially. Make sure you go to school, get a good job. I'm like, we're good. I want to be a PA, and the other one wanted to be attorney. I'm like, well, they're good. So they're completely fine. So after they left, hugged, said goodbye, stay in touch. I went and sat down in the corner. And you know how when you move into a home and it's so quiet, but everything echoes because you have no furniture? Well, that's kind of where I was, right? So I was very reflective in the first place. I pull the only piece of furniture we have left, and it's a folding chair. And I sit down and I open this card, and it says, gracias por ser la primera persona que confió en mí, which means thanks for being the first person that had confidence in me. La quiero mucho. I love you a lot. So that for me was an aha moment. Aha, like, hey, you know what? Me as a woman can do something else to help another woman in a very meaningful way. I want to pause now and do the next slide, which I call an aha reflection. Okay, it's a little interactive here, so I'm going to, kind of guide you through it, and I'm going to ask for you to kind of respond back a little bit if you feel open to it. I want everyone to take a deep breath in for me. Close your eyes. 1, 2, 3. And exhale. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to guide you. While you're kind of taking this relaxing moment, I want you to think to yourself, who was the one woman in your life that did something meaningful, that really kind of came out there, thought about you, invested in you, and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to help her. Who helped change the trajectory of your life? And I want you to also think about a phrase that describes what they did to help get you to that next step. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to tell you who mine was. Mine was my mom. My mom told me from a very young age, you can be anything you want to be. I almost felt like it was a secret sauce, like I was the only person in the world that ever heard that, We all say that to our children. But she said it in a way to me that made me feel like I had a secret power, so that when things went bad, I kind of would go back and say, no, my mom said, I just got to work a little harder. I can do it. So everybody take another deep breath in for me. And out. 1, 2, 3. And now I'd love to hear from you a couple of those people who really made an impact on you. I saw one person tell me it was her boss when she was 22. Who else do we have? You can just put it in your chat. And I'd love to hear from that particular person. What did that boss do for you? History teacher in the 11th grade. Would you mind chatting? Kind of what did they do? What was different? She was on a temporary assignment when she interviewed. She remembered our conversation. Can't see the whole thing here. Let me see this. She remembered our conversation and hired me into the company. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Little things like that when you say, okay, someone, mom, Kaylee, yeah, I get it. A boss. Yeah, all of those things. She knew you were smart and took interest in your skills, right? Do you know who these women are? They're your wow women. You can go to the next slide, please. They are women, W, who created an opportunity, O, for another woman, wow woman. Now, they probably had no idea consciously that they were wow women. They didn't even know that they were probably doing anything special, but they were. They saw something in you. And they said, I'm going to invest in her and do something for her to help move her a little bit further along the path. Because you know what? She's worth it. And that's what I'm here to talk to you today about, is how to be wow. It is something that I truly believe can help change the world little by little. Meaningful steps. It's not hard. It's real. It is focused. And as I said, it can change the world. I'm going to give you the 3 steps. Super simple to do. Number 1, next slide. Connect, support, and repeat. Super easy. Now listen, connecting these days, oh my gosh, think about it. Look how easy it is for us to connect. We can hang up on the call and we can all kind of link into each other and talk one off and we can be friends for life. But if you go to the next slide, 200-300 years ago, I laughed. If you're a woman in South Carolina, think about this, right? You are on this big old horse and you have to ask your husband permission. Can I have permission, please, to use the horse? You're in that god-awful hot outfit. You have to ride side saddle. And then you're going a couple miles down the road to another house to see if your friend, by chance, is available to catch up and chat. Well, I think I'd choose home, right? That's a little tough. But today, in today's world, we can connect on so many easier levels. Logistically, philosophically, we have a lot more at our fingertips. So next slide, please. How many of you have heard of Brene Brown, right? I love Brene Brown. We all love Brene Brown. She talks about the importance of connection and how connection is vital to our life. That's what our whole life's purpose is to be here to connect. Now, she also talks a lot about shame and guilt. And a lot of you were talking about that shame and guilt, right? It's like peanut butter and jelly, salt and pepper, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Well, that's a bad example of shame and guilt. But you know what I'm saying? Going back to Brene Brown, she talks about how connection is so important, but men and women, we all know, connect very differently. And they talk and communicate very differently. So let's go to the next slide because, if you have, look at men and women are really trying to kind of form that bond. They want to chat and speak heart to heart. And they want to find resolution and collaboration. Where men, for the most part, they talk about facts and things and talking more about getting things done in this particular way. There's a lot of black and white. Not that it's bad. We need everyone in the world to create change and to create things. But I'm just saying it's difficult if you look at how we can be wow and how we can, have probably lagged a little bit behind getting up to that point of being able to be mentoring and moving the needle. Some of it has to do with our communication styles. Go to the next slide. And it probably starts when we're really little, because if you look at little children, even at 3 or 4, and you say, let's talk about their conversations. Little boys, it's the one up. Little girls, it's a bond. For instance, you got 2 little boys chatting. Maybe they're 4 and they're in South Carolina. One may say to the other little boy, oh my God, mom and dad caught a 10-foot alligator. It was huge. And the other little boy may say something like, well, yeah, you know what? Mine caught a 12-foot alligator and was held underwater for 5 minutes and nearly drowned. That one-up communication. 2 little girls, think about it. Some of you who have little girls, you know how it is. Oh my gosh, I love your pink scrunchie. It's so pretty. And the other one would say, well, your shoes are so cool and sparkly. I love how when you run, they turn different colors. And then they hold hands and they run off and they're best friends forever. You fast forward 30, 40 years, and I know all of you can experience this as well. You have the two men who are now talking. One may say to the other, you know, when I was younger, I caught a 10-foot alligator, and it's pretty big. And the other guy's like, well, dude, you know what? I caught a 12-foot alligator once. I was held underwater. The cops came. I was in the Charleston Sun. In fact, it made national news. Again, it's the one up, where you may have two women, and one would be like, oh my gosh, look at you. Did you lose weight? You look fabulous. You go, girl. You're rocking that dress. And then she'll turn to her friend 5 seconds later and say, did you see so-and-so and that get up? That is not looking so good. And I don't know about those earrings. Whatever. And Brene Brown would have a field day with all of that. But women, when they connect, and they can be really good at this, next slide, when they connect, they can come together and make changes greater than anything that any outcome could ever come from their individual dreams. They bring so much to the table: emotional intelligence, creativity, innovation, strategic thinking, problem solving, persistence, collaboration, you name it. They bring change and positive attributes to anything. And that's what's really important to remember. We have all of these capabilities to do all of these various things and to bring it. You can hit the next slide. But the problem is, one of the things is, and I mentioned this a little bit before, we're not really great at networking. Not yet. We're getting better. Things like this today certainly help. You know, again, if you look back, we're lagging a little bit, where men have larger and broader connections. They have clear goals. They obtain mentors. We need to start feeling like, you know, when we're reaching out to someone, it's not that it's always something that we want. Maybe we want to connect because we can mutually benefit, help each other. And if you start looking at it that way, you can start to drive that change and build those connections that, hey, maybe it's going to help you get a promotion. Maybe it's going to help you help someone else that down the road, they're going to pay it forward. It's going to help someone else. So it creates these ripple effects. And that's where I think we have to start making those strategic, intentional alignments work. So how do you connect? Next slide, please. It's not hard, right? Basically, you connect, you want to be deliberate. You want to be genuine. You want to think about it strategically. If you know of someone, and you know of a young woman that is looking for help in a certain area, and you say, you know what, I've got another connection here. Put those two together, help them. No one helped us probably when we were younger. It's not as much as we can now. So try and pull them into the pack a little bit to move that needle. The same thing for you. If there's something you want and that you need, and you have a goal in your life, align with someone else that you feel that may be able to help you, but you can also return value to them. Do it again and again. It's extremely powerful. Number 2, create a cord. Cords are very, very strong, and they're not easily broken. Think about everything that we talk about. Next slide, please. When you create a cord, right? You think about everything we talk about in life. You talk about, if you look at children's fables and fairy tales, it's 3 blind mice, 3 little women, 3 little pigs, 3 little stooges. Everything we talk about in the power of 3 is very, very powerful, right? And if you form groups of 3, it takes away that dualistic me versus you thinking. Now, cords are not new. They've been around for a very long time. And if you want to think of a really strong cord, you think of that when the women went out and fought for our right to vote. Well, it's not that long ago. 1920, August 26, 1920, right? So to go to the next slide, you have leaders like Lucy Stone, Alice, I forget what her name, Lucy Stone, you know, Alice Paul, that's her name, Alice Paul, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, all of those very particular women who went out there, and they may not have always gotten along great, maybe some issues here and there, but they believed in the enfranchisement of women, and they went out there and fought for our right. And thank God they did, because they helped move the needle strategically by forming a cord. So next slide. Whether you're trying to, you know, help create a great volunteer event, or perhaps you're looking to bring all of your girls together, your daughters together, friends together for a night of wine and wisdom, form that cord, because it's going to help you provide strength and unity to move things forward. Next slide. How do you create a cord? It's not hard. First of all, you can't do it alone, right? You have to have more than one person to form a cord. It's got to be intentional and strategic, has to be purposeful to drive change, and then you have to do it again and again. Next slide. So we've talked about creating a chord. We've talked about connect, support, and repeat. Number 3, and this is a really important one, pay it forward. Now, I'm not talking about paying it forward like you do when you're going through Starbucks and you give a Starbucks to the person behind you and then that person pays it forward. I love those. I'm sure everyone loves that, right? I'm a big recipient and giver of that particular chord formation. I'm talking though about something that can really make a powerful impact. It has not been that long ago that we have been behind the 8 ball. Next slide, please. And I think some of these things are going to blow your mind because it does to me, right? Think about it. It wasn't until the 1950s that we could formulate our own contracts and our own wills. And the mid 70s, we weren't able to have our own credit card until the mid 70s. That's a little scary to think about it, just 50 years ago. And the other day I was talking to a friend and he was reminding me, we were just talking about different things, and his mom in the 90s, early 90s, worked for the airlines. And she would go to the airlines like every month and have to be weighed because if she was over 129 pounds at 5'5", she could jeopardize losing her job. And I think about all that we talk about and what I heard about today of the problems and challenges we have of balancing a family. And now you have to balance your weight too. I mean, it's crazy. So not that long ago where we had some of these very odd sort of restrictions in our lives, but that's all behind us now. We're able to move forward in a different way. Now, I think I mentioned when we first started that I recently wrote a book and I published it back in June. It was on my mom's 91st birthday. And it's about my mom. And my mom is a funny lady. And when I wrote the book, it was really about all the funny things she said over the years. It took me about 7 years, but a lifetime to collect these hysterical anecdotes. But when I started to put them all together and draft this book, I started to see all these common threads. And all of a sudden, I knew so much more about her as a person. I understood why she was obsessed with food. I understood why she was obsessed with a clean house. That's where she got her self-worth. Now, I could talk to you all day long about the disparity experiences with her growing up from a professional standpoint, but I'll just give you a little synopsis. She went to the 9th grade. She dropped out at the 9th grade. Her mom she had a loving, wonderful family, but she was often having to stay home from school to take care of her dad or to take care of her brothers and sisters because she was good at it. In fact, she told me she got an A in dusting. Can you imagine? An A in dusting in the 9th grade. So I got to understand her love language. And I started to understand, gosh, my mom, she just was from a different generation. At that time, she had no one to be her wow woman. And one day, even despite her kind of restrictions, she grabbed me, and I'll never forget it. I was around 11 years old. And she and my dad had a little bit of a spat. And they had a great marriage. My dad was super good to her. But when they would have these spats, he would take off in the car and she would be washing the dishes and drying them and slamming them a little bit, saying how she just didn't feel appreciated. And we all know how that feels, right? I still sometimes say, oh gosh, you feel like you're doing more than the other person, whatever. But she grabbed me and she sat me down and she said, I want to talk to you, Bonnie. Now I thought either she's going to say, you know what? It's the divorce word, or you're in trouble because you didn't put the potatoes in the oven again on time. But no, she said, listen to me. I want you to go to college and get an education and never depend on anyone financially. I want you to make something of yourself. Don't be dumb like me. Now, when she said that, that broke my heart. My mom was not dumb. She just didn't have anyone to kind of look at her like you guys are telling and saying, hey, you know what? You seem smart. Hey, you know what? I think you're going to be good at this. Let me kind of help you a little bit, right? But she had the foresight to pass it to me and to give me that as a gift to say, you must do X, Y, and Z. I said, okay. So then I passed that to my daughter, but in a little bit of a different way. And I hope you find the comedy in this because she and I still laugh at it. Next line. I gave to my daughter a gift and paid it forward. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my mom. The next one, sorry about that. By saying, you know what? She sings this song all the time about Snow White. You know the lyrics, someday my prince will come, someday we'll meet again. And away to his castle will go to be forever happy. I know, lovely, lovely song, just so romantic, right? Well, I told her the lyrics were a little different. If you go to the next one, this is what I had her singing. Someday my prince will come. Well, which she turns it on to the next slide, please. anyhow, I'll tell you that someday my prince will come. Someday my prince will come after I go to college and get a good job. I promise I won't marry a slob. That's what she's saying. And she didn't find out until she was 16 years old, where she came into the room one day and said, "What the heck, Ma? Why are you?" And then she laughed and she goes, "You know what? I'm kind of glad you did. But I walked around thinking that for a long, long time." And we still laugh about it. My daughter now, and I loved hearing some of you saying how your daughters, your sons and daughters came to you and said, "I like that my mom works, I like that my mom does these things." Well, my daughter now is in her second year of law school. And I think about the generational difference of my mom getting an A in dusting and never having any opportunity. And now our children and their grandchildren having, many more opportunities. And she's doing well. And listen, all we want is for our kids to be happy, and she's happy. So like, I'm happy. But she said to me this summer, "Mom, why do sometimes like women disparage each other?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, I was at the conference, and the conference she's talking about was something she was so excited about. She was interning this summer, and the company she was working for invited her to like this employee conference where they were all going off site for like 2 days of learning. She got her A game together, got some outfits together, made sure she was there 15 minutes before every, start of every meeting. And one morning was getting her latte, from the barista at the hotel with her extra shot, like I like, and she said, "Oh, the barista was really nice. We were chatting and, she's like, 'How are you doing?' 'I'm good.' Mom, she was so nice." And then she said to me, "Are you enjoying the conference?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I did." She goes, "Are you here with your husband?" And she said, No, I'm in law school." And the woman said, "Oh, that's great. And now listen, I don't think the woman meant anything by it. And of course, it wasn't on purpose, but we have to stop doing that to each other. We have to start, raising each other up. And it's no surprise, next slide, please, that 79% of women have some self-esteem issues. A recent survey from Wealthy Her Network actually shows that 79% of women have some self-esteem issues. They feel like they have the imposter syndrome. I have some girlfriends that don't feel that way at all, but I would say probably 8 out of 10 do have a little bit of an issue with that. Instead, we need to be good to each other. We need to share our secret sauces, be strategic, help each other. And when people succeed, we are there for them when they do, and we're also there for them when they fail. Because here's the thing, when one of us succeeds and one of us rises, we all rise. And behind every woman who does well should be another woman who has her back and who has invested in her. We all have daughters. We all have friends who have daughters. Invest in them. Help pull them up. And when you do something for them, you make sure that they promise to pay it forward too. We need to go a few slides, please. We have some good news. Next one, please. Keep going, please. Keep going, please. Some great news. It's right after here. We have about, next one, please. 25% of women are currently serving on boards. And that's great, right? We are definitely seeing an increase there. But we have to keep doing it more because, one woman in the boardroom is a token, 2 is a presence, and 3 is a voice. There's that 3 again. We have to start creating stronger cords. So let's go to the next slide. We've talked about a lot of things today. We've talked about how to be well. We talked about what WOW is, women providing opportunity to other women. We talked about how to do it. Connect, support, and repeat, create a cord, and pay it forward. And you know how you do it? It's all based on that one meaningful thing that life is based on, and that is making a connection, right? We know that that's important. We know that making a connection is all part of humanity and what is really the purpose of our whole life. So remember how I talked to you a little bit about my friend Iris and that card? Well, here it is. And this is what I want for each and every one of you. I want you to be well, to feel well, because it is my fervent conviction that if we put this into practice, we can change the world and make such meaningful impact. When this wraps up and you go home and you're driving in the car or, tonight rushing around like we all do, making dinner and running after the kids, stop for a second. Just think of 1 or 2 people you may be able to make a difference with. 1 or 2 people you can help. And also think about 1 or 2 things that you have as a goal. And how are you going to get to that goal? How can you network and connect and help provide value back and forth so that you can get to that next level in your life? I want you to think about being wow, but I want you to start thinking about being wow now. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. I just want to share something with you. The next slide, I did write a book, and I didn't share with you something really powerful for me. I talked a lot about my mom. My mom has given me so much. My mom just passed away 3 weeks ago. And to talk about what a loss that is for me has been really hard, because she has been my wow woman. But I also know through this journey of writing the book, being here with you guys today, which I never would have had if I hadn't written the book, is her blessing to me. And so I promise and committed to being wow with her and share that generationally going forward. And I really want to really thank you for having me here today to continue with your spirit. Good luck to all of you, and keep rocking.
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.